don't think we should put expectations that are too far, that these people are going to run for president and not point out where they disagree with the other. The question will be is, you don't say a bullseye. I disagree. What he did on January 6th was wrong. You can say that, right? And knowing President Trump well, it was a different speech at the beginning, and it was a different situation. Do I give him grace that he fell back into a rally mode when this was his first time speaking after almost being killed? Yeah, because I don't think, I mean, that's a very difficult place to be in, but he only mentioned Biden's name. He said he wasn't going to mention Biden at all. Then he mentions Biden's names one time. He said, I'm going to mention it one time, then names it a second time. That's actually pretty good for him, right? I would actually give that, I think he'd say himself, that's not bad. I mean, and I know what he's kind of going through. I'll tell you this personal story. So I called him after the assassination, and he says, Kevin, I did not know this, but the doctor explained to me, there's a lot of blood in your ear. Now, Kevin, you'll learn this because you have big, beautiful ears. You know they get big. But looking back at that and watching him walk out that first time, I know he's going through, like anybody would, some different emotional times, but he's like a strong man. He doesn't want to display that. I only see him really display it with his grandchildren. And so, naturally, a lot of what he said wasn't in the teleprompter. And if he's going to go off the teleprompter, he's going to go to where he normally is. And I expect President Biden will still make some of those arguments, and there's times they're going to slip up, but I can know they're trying not to. And he took the campaign ads down. He's trying to restart it. But as we get closer, I think people's temperature will rise again, but just watch the tone.
So, Mr. Secretary, what's the answer?
I think that, and this is, when I was on the campaign trail, I found that people were really interested, even folks who were very ideological, had strong partisan leanings too, that people are really interested in two things, that they want unity. They want for Americans to find a way to come together. And also they want solutions. Like people's ears would really perk up when I started talking and when I watched other candidates also talk in these rooms, forums in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, about, okay, how would you actually get to a solution on this problem that we have? Whatever it was, whatever the subject matter was. That gave me a lot of hope because I think that a lot of this starts with the people. Voters being more participatory, voters, the speaker pointed out that part of the reason that politicians engage in this divisiveness is because it works, it sells. It works in one way for people that go vote. It also turns off a lot of people that don't go vote. That's one of the biggest problems that we have, is the many, many people who don't go vote in our country. And so I think as somebody that's out of politics now, I think it's incumbent on all of us to create the incentives for people who are trying to unify. Obviously, y'all might imagine that in this race, I have a very strong opinion about who's trying to unify and who's not, and I'm sure that Kevin does too. But then there are also things that we can do, like mechanically, to make things better. One of them, for instance, is to switch to a commission style or more neutral style of redistricting so that you don't have congressional districts that are super partisan. And, I say this as my twin brother served with Speaker McCarthy, my twin brother Joaquin. He says I'm a minute uglier than he is. I'm actually a minute older. He represents the 20th Congressional District of Texas, which is basically the western half of San Antonio. And he represents a district where the index is probably, 66, 67% Democratic now. So as long as you get through the primary, you're going to be fine, basically. And what that creates is a bunch of districts where the politicians in those districts really don't have much of an incentive to have to talk and work across the aisle, or not as much as they could. And I'm not saying that every congressional district needs to be a 50-50 congressional district, but probably it would help to not have the politicians themselves directly in charge of drawing up their own districts. So that's one thing. I also think that the way that Congress and other representative bodies are set up makes a difference. I remember my brother telling me, for instance, that as soon as he got into Congress, in the orientation, literally the orientation that you go to, whatever that is in the beginning, that there was an orientation for the Republicans and an orientation for the Democrats, you know, and they would go do their own things, right? That from the very beginning, it's set up to basically divide you.
He's right on this.
That struck me because I started my tenure in public service in local government in San Antonio, and it was nonpartisan. So, like literally, I can't remember one single time on the dais, because I served on the city council and then I was mayor of the city for 5 years, where somebody was talking about an issue, one of the council members or the mayor, and they referred to it, you know, as Democrat or Republican. Now, come on, I mean, people are something, right? They vote Democratic or Republican, but that was never the identity, the defining identity of how we did things or looked at issues. Or where I think the party system has a lot of value, does have a lot of value, but we have to find ways mechanically to also turn down the temperature going forward and get people more to a place where they can actually engage in meaningful dialogue that turns into work with each other for policy solutions that are good for people.